Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the new Nikon Z mount 600mm f4. I've also got my F mount 600mm f4 here as well. We're going to compare it directly towards that. We're going to go through image quality, focusing, we're going to talk about the actual design of the lens itself, and also we're going to talk about how this is realistically two lenses in one. It's not just a 600 f4, this is also an 840mm f5.6. So this isn't just replacing the F mount 600 f4, it's technically also able to replace an 800mm f5.6, so two lenses in one. Now when it comes to this 600mm itself, in terms of the design of the 600, it's very similar to the design of the 400 2.8, so if you've been able to see one of those, very similar to that. It is slightly larger for obvious reasons. We have all the customizable buttons that you're used to from previous lenses, the same function ring and control ring. We then have our manual focusing right towards the back of the lens, and then we do have our lens function button and then our autofocus and manual focusing switch right towards the back of the lens, and then a focusing distance switch right at the back of the lens as well. And then over on the other side of the lens we'll have our teleconverter switch, which can be locked in place, and then you'll also have your memory set switch. Memory set is really useful if you're trying to save a particular location or particular position of focus, is a better way of saying it. And that can then jump the lens from one point to another or back towards a subject if you need to. There's lots of cool things you can do with memory set focusing with the lenses that allow you to do that. One interesting thing that's worth noting is, obviously I always get the question about, is the foot Arca Swiss? Let's get that out of the way first. The foot is not Arca Swiss, but the 600, the 400 and the 800 Z mount lenses all use the same foot. So if you buy a replacement foot that is Arca Swiss and you want to use that between different lenses, you can do, because they're all the same foot, they're all the same attachment. Or if you wanted to buy multiple of the same foot, then you can do that. So the fitting of the 600, the 400 and the 800 is all the same. The foot is identical. The attachments on the bottom of the foot are all the same as well. Just like the 400, you also have a back filter holder. So if you wanted to put a filter in there, you can do that as well. Now, one interesting thing that's worth mentioning is when you compare this to the older lens, it is definitely lighter and it is definitely smaller, especially if you start thinking about the teleconverter and also the FTZ adapter. But also the lens hood is much shorter, and just so you know, if you wanted to, you can still use the older lens hood on the newer lens. So if you've got an old 600 and you don't want to trade that in for this, you want to keep it, and you wanted to keep that old 600 lens hood, or if you wanted to buy an old 600 lens hood, that will still work on the new Z mount 600 lens hood if you wanted to. In terms of controls, switches, dials, also the same layout for the teleconverter as well, and that's the teleconverter that turns this from a 600 to an 840. Just worth mentioning on that, because obviously both the 400 and the 600 have built-in teleconverters. A built-in teleconverter doesn't necessarily come with a lot of the downsides of an external teleconverter. So the built-in teleconverters are calibrated to be a part of the lens. So it's not like you're just buying a lens off a shelf and then a teleconverter off the shelf and putting them together. They are designed to work for each other. The teleconverter that's in this lens is designed with the rest of the lens. It's not like it's a teleconverter that has to work with how many ever the other lenses. So that does mean that the loss of quality is minimal. There is such a small difference when it comes to loss of quality with this built-in teleconverter. Don't get me wrong, you still do obviously change the level of light that comes through the lens, so the aperture value will still change. That's no different, but the actual quality is completely different. Sometimes a lot of people would often refer to as a teleconverter being a negative thing because you're losing image quality and you could just crop in instead. That isn't necessarily the case with the built-in teleconverters. They are still allowing you to receive as much quality of the lens as possible. It also helps that this lens is incredibly good quality in the first place, as you would expect for the price of it. But don't think that just because it's a teleconverter, it's like every other external teleconverter. That being said, if you needed even extra reach, you can still use this with an external teleconverter if you wanted to. So you can take this well over 1000mm if you wanted to as well. So hopefully that'll give you some insight into the Oh, this is Nikon calling, so I suppose I should probably answer it. Hello? Yeah, I've got the 600. It arrived today. You want me to take the 600 to Morten? And Morten's in Norway. Yeah? And you want me to do that tomorrow? I mean, yeah, sure. Okay. I'll call Morten. Great, thanks. Okay. Let's go. Hey Morten.
Hello.
How you doing?
I just arrived 2 minutes ago.
Ah, cool. A good timing then.
Yeah.
How you doing? It's good to see you.
You too.
Where's the best place to park?
I was thinking if you could put the car here. Let's get ready to rock and roll. I'm excited to see what you have for me. I feel it's a little torture that you decided not to show me before here in the darkness.
I thought that was your idea.
Okay.
Right. So this is where I open it and realise that I've actually brought the 400. But no, it is the new 600.
Oh,
That I will
awesome.
let you take a look at.
Okay, it's really hard because there's not a lot of light in here. But is it just this? Is everything laid out as the same as my 400 2.8?
Yeah. So buttons are in the same location, dials are in the same location.
Just plug and play then.
That's the one. Yeah,
Let's do some bird photography. It's light.
it is. Especially because it's still got a built-in teleconverter, right? So
How is it every time I meet you on these Nikon shoots, you make my almost brand new equipment seem old?
I don't do it on purpose. I just try to, bring you the new stuff. So
Okay, let me mount the plate.
Yeah.
Put it on the gimbal.
we'll get it set up and then we'll.
Gimbal head.
Morten,
Yeah.
first of all, thanks so much for bringing me here.
You're very
Before,
welcome.
obviously, when we were organising everything, we were very excited, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's actually lived up to that. We've seen some great stuff. We've got some
It's been
fantastic,
amazing.
yeah. We've had some fantastic excitement,
Yeah.
especially around woodpeckers.
Yeah, especially today.
Yeah.
So much
Yeah.
action.
I know. I suppose the weather has kind of been against us today, but I think we've still made that work.
Yeah, definitely.
With the rain and the background has been great. So, really, the question I have for you is, obviously, I've talked you through the technical aspect of this new lens. Everyone at home kind of knows an idea of the technical aspect of this lens at this point, but I think they'd really like to understand you as a professional wildlife photographer for a number of years, but also a 600mm user for a number of years.
Yeah.
What are your kind of thoughts and impressions on this new 600, really?
I prefer my old one, but that's basically because I just spent a lot of money on it. No,
Sure.
it's a, like, I got my first 600 in 2005.
Yeah.
And then I got a new one 2008. Then I got this one 2017. And every time you have a little weight saving and some new features and stuff. But now I feel it's a little like, it makes sense because it's like with the Z cameras. I feel, or not that I feel, I know for sure that this is just the biggest step up from, like, if I'm going to upgrade this, it's the biggest step up of various reasons. First one is like, now it's significantly lighter. It is shorter. Like, if you put them side by side, I know it tricks a little with the lens is here and here. And what I have experienced so far, now I don't know anything about the weight or the thing, but it's the balance in the lens.
Yeah.
Before, I could not balance this on my gimbal or my video head without it was like hanging, in the nail. And the further out I get the tripod here, the more it tends to be flexible. So I don't know, you probably know the weight, but there's a difference.
And you can obviously appreciate the fact that this lens has got a built-in teleconverter, whereas
that was my main point, because if you're sitting in the blind, it might not be a big deal because you are in the dry environment. You can change the camera with the teleconverter on and off, but you cannot do it quickly. You cannot do it like there's a squirrel sitting outside. I want to get closer, or there's a bigger two squirrels. I want to get further away. The fact that it's all that is familiar for me because I have the 400-2.8 with a converter. So just being able to flip that, I think it makes a huge difference, especially when I'm thinking forward to expeditions to the polar regions where it's blowing snow, or Dovrefjell here in Norway where I have snow coming and I have to decide in the morning what lens am I going to use. Then it makes a difference. And you could argue that, of course, I use my 100-400 a lot because of flexibility, but today it would have been a no-go because we were like on the limit because of low light. So having a 600 F4 with a built-in converter that's light, it's nice.
And another question for you, I don't know if you'd have the answer to this. If someone was in your position, and people know obviously the types of photography that you do, would you choose the 400-2.8 or the 600?
It's a really good question, and I actually had to think about that a lot myself, because I knew that I was going for a set super telephoto lens. And I already have the 600, but that should not make me make the decision. So what I did was I sat down and I was thinking, so I'm shooting with the 600. How often have I wanted to go closer to the subject compared to how many times have I wanted to wish I could have a little more of the environment? And I came to the conclusion that actually most of the time I could put a teleconverter on a 400, but I cannot take off a teleconverter on a 600.
No.
So in the perfect world, I would like two of these, one 400 and one 600, but I would never carry this unless it was a blind. So the short answer is, I chose the 400-2.8 with a converter because of two reasons. First of all, it's slightly smaller, and second, it's an F2.8, and with the projects I'm doing now, which is very much in the end of the day, you know, badgers, foxes, I can use that extra bit of light. Plus, I would rarely need a 600 with a 2x converter, but putting a 2x converter on a 400 2.8 will give me like an 800 5.6. So I find that extremely flexible. But I have to admit that it was a little annoying to make this video with you when I just bought the 400 2.8.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Now, but you can imagine,
Yeah.
you sit with a brand new 600, and we saw, it was not today, it was yesterday, when you photographed that hawk, it came flying like super speed, like we didn't get that. And then you had like a
perfect shot,
frame to frame with the wings.
I'll put that shot in.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah,
but
so
it's nice.
It's there's going to be people that have that same question. There's going to be people that know, do I want a 400 2.8? Do I want a 600 f4? And like you said, it's going to come down to what you shoot. It's purely going to be based on what you're going to be photographing, how much flexibility you need. So, you know, if you are further away and you are photographing smaller subjects from greater distances, the 600 is the no-brainer because you can go from 600 to 800. Whereas the 400 to 8, like you talked about, a little bit of extra light, and it is more flexible if you still need longer length at some point with teleconverters, and that 400 focal length might be better for mammals or other things.
Yeah, you know, like muskox and stuff. And I still haven't tried my 400 with a 2 set converter. But if that is sharp, you're probably going to test it at some point. But if that is sharp, if that is good, then I'm super flexible.
I mean,
so you can boil it down to, would you often find yourself in a situation where 600 is a little short? So that is your like starting point, and then you just want to add, like photographing snow leopards in Nepal or whatever, small tiny birds that are very shy, then I'll definitely go for the 6. But if you want more flexibility, if you are like me, you like to photograph small animals, not say small animals with a 500, but if you want more of the environment around, if you want to have in extreme situations that little bit of extra light, I don't know about the close focus distance, but I like the 400 also. I fell in love with that when we were in Scotland, so you were an expensive
I apologize.
young man. No, but it also have a good close focus distance, so it's super flexible.
And it's interesting that you have been using this 600 for a number of years, and you know you've had different versions of this 600, and do you feel like this is kind of the best 600 that there's ever been?
Yeah, because obviously, it's like asking if the Z9 has been the best. For me, yes. And for the simple reasons, portability, it's very light, it's shorter, it fits in my backpack easily, it has a better balance. I feel it's of course subjective, but I like the function rings here. And now with the new firmware, I played around, you know, today with using this one for zooming in the video from the 8K. I like to use this button for sometimes, like today, I use this, what is it called? Function thing. I use it so that when I turned it left, it was 1 point out of focus. If I turn it right, it would go to like panic out of like the whole thing. And then I was using a smaller portion so that when the scroll suddenly came, I could do like so. And if I need precision. So I like to have, it's like a piano. Like if you only have 5 buttons, you're very limited on what songs you can play. But the more buttons and things you have, you just have a
always
wider...
just gives you more choice, right? And especially like when we were in the high today, we'd have a subject that was quite far back. Then all of a sudden there'd be a subject that would appear in that foreground. So using those functions, even as like a safe focus position to just dart back from one place to another, was also really useful as well. So,
and of course I forget to talk about the converter all the time, but you know it's because when you get something, when I got my 400 for the first time, now I just started to recall, because there are many more things I was excited about. And if there's some of you viewers that has not had the big set lenses, then there are also other practical stuff, like if you do video as I do when I'm out, it's really, really nice. Like the VR in this one, it's very loud, you know, like So having a shotgun mic on the top of your camera, like I always had to place my microphone wireless outside the blind.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I couldn't have it here.
Yeah.
Photographing red deer last year, and I could hear that all the time. This one is like, I would say you need to, like from here you can't hear it. In a silent room you had to put your ear close.
You have to really.
So I can use a shotgun mic on this one, and then in the tiny bit of noise floor that comes from this, you can easily remove. It's harder with this one.
Sure. Thanks for that, Morten. So it's great to gain your insight, and as I mentioned right at the start, thanks for bringing me here. It's been great, and
it has been a pleasure.
Hopefully, I really look forward to the stuff that you put together in your video, and hopefully the stuff that's in my video people still find useful as well. So
yeah, I hope
it should be a good mix. Yeah. And I look forward to part 3 of me and you.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Me too. Yeah. I'm looking forward to going through all the photos.
Yes.
How many did you get?
I'm not sure. Yesterday, so on the first day I'm about 2,000 photos, and then today I was at about 3,000 photos. So quite a few. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of shots to go through.
Yeah.
So good luck with that.
Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Morten.
Well, I'm back from shooting with Morten, and it was a wonderful experience to be able to shoot there in that location, the wildlife, the landscapes. It was just an incredible experience, and it was also great to meet Morten again, and it was also obviously great to show him the 600. If you want to know more about some of the stuff that we did whilst we were there, a lot of that will be in Morten's video. So Morten's video is going to be about us being there using the 600, so do go and give that a watch. Also, if you are interested in the location that we shot in and some of the things that you can do there, Morten actually has an hour-long video of him at that same location. So it was wonderful being able to join him in that location and then see that kind of 1-hour documentary of that location, then actually produce our own stuff about that as well. The rest of this video is going to be more focused on the stuff that I shot there. We're also going to look at focus breathing, focusing in general, all those types of things. So when it comes to image quality, I've compared the image quality of the 600 against the new 400, against the new 800, and also against the old 600. So we'll take a quick look at what the image quality of this lens looks like compared to those lenses. So when it comes to comparing this lens against the 800, specifically the 800 PF, the 800 is a lot smaller. It is physically a lot lighter as well, but they're also in completely different price brackets. So I don't think anybody's going to go out and say that they're going to swap the 800 PF for a 600 F4, unless, you know, that doesn't really concern you from a budget point of view. But realistically, I think they are in two completely different price brackets. If you're in a situation where price isn't a problem and then you want the best of the best, I would recommend the 600 F4 because it also covers the 840mm f5.6. And when you're using the teleconverter with this 600, the quality between that and the actual 800 6.3, I can't tell the difference between them. If anything, in some situations, I think the 600 with the teleconverter actually looks better. So this 800 PF is all about size and weight. It is a lot smaller, it is a lot lighter. So if you need the longest focal length in the smallest package, the 800mm PF is still the one. The other consideration is always going to be the 400 2.8. So this is really going to come down to what your preference is going to be in terms of focal length. This is going to really come down to knowing what your subject is. Do you prefer a 400 and a 500? Do you prefer a 600 and an 800? Or do you prefer smaller, lighter 800? It just really comes down to your circumstance and which one you're going to be using. It's also worth mentioning that if you've got the older 600mm, then the newer Z mount 600mm is the better lens. But again, it's going to come down to price. Are you in a position where you can trade that old 600mm in? Do you want to even replace that 600mm? Obviously, the newer lens is better. It focuses faster, at least on the Z9 that I've tested it on. So don't get me wrong, because I've absolutely loved my 600 f4. This is a lens that I've had for a long time, and I've always said that if people ask me if I prefer like the 500 PF or the 600 f4 or the 500 f4, it's always been that the 600 f4 just has a special place in my heart because I love it so much. But this new 600 f4 is really good. So unfortunately, this would probably be the last time that I will use my F mount 600 f4 and move to a Z mount 600 f4 instead. For the stuff that I shoot, at least, I do feel like the 400 is a little short, and I do like the idea of the 600 and the 800. I do think that the 600 f4 is probably going to be my main used lens. But there's a lot that can happen in 12 months, so we'll see. I do hope that you found this video useful. If you have any questions about this 600 or any of the lenses that I've talked about today, then please do let me know. The only question that I don't have an answer to is, where is the 200 to 600? I don't know that, unfortunately. I wish I could tell you, but I can't, so here we are. But if there's any other questions that you want to ask, then please do let me know in the comments below. I hope that you found this video useful. It's so good to see you again, and I will see you very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.